Imagine this. You are a random British man that just lives his best life in London, UK. Nothing special. Work, some entertainment, sleep. Then, one day, all hell breaks loose and suddenly streets are overrun with strange, mutated creatures that murder everything in their path. There's only a couple things you can do. You either run and hide somewhere where you believe you might be safe, or you join essentially what is a civilian militia team, or maybe, if you just so happen to be a part of the British Army, you are sent to the front lines, to the killing floor. Hello everyone, I'm Mako, and today I want to talk about a game that is very dear to my heart, even though I may have discovered it very late into its life cycle. It's called Killing Floor. This game is an absolute gem of its time. A survival co-op horror shooter that came to be originally as a full conversion mod for Unreal Tournament 2004, then due to its shrinking user base got remade into a full title by the original creators and the game studio Tripwire Interactive. Because the point of this video is not to discuss the lore of the game, but to introduce you to the game and maybe talk about the game mechanics and what I like or dislike about them, I will give you the shortest breakdown of the KF plot that I think makes sense. The game places you in UK, mostly in London, where Horizon Biotech, a biotechnology company, is contracted by the British government to perform biogenetic experiments that are supposed to create and clone a perfect soldier. Needless to say, these experiments have gone completely wrong and started an apocalyptic outbreak of hyper-aggressive clones of specimens led by the head scientist and the CEO of Horizon, Dr. Kevin Clemley, now known as the Patriarch, that has quickly swept London onto its knees, and soon outbreaks began happening in different labs around the UK. You are a part of a response team that the government and Horizon are dispatching to end this madness. Sometimes these teams are essentially army survivors, and sometimes that's just a ragtag group of self-formed militia that happen to be really good at killing these specimens, known to everyone as Zeds. That is essentially all you need to know for the game's plot. Now, let's talk about why I believe more people should play this game and why I think it's so good, and let's start with the basics. Killing Floor is essentially a horror horde shooter in modern terms. You land on a map alone, or with your team buddies, only with a 9mm pistol in hand, and you're supposed to survive and clear out all the Zeds out of the area to earn some Dosh. Now, these Zeds are coming in more and more difficult waves, up to the 4th, 7th or 10th wave, depending on the game length you select, and after that you always fight the boss, which is a clone of the Patriarch. Seems simple enough, right? But how does it work? How are you supposed to kill all these Zeds with only a 9mm pistol and a knife? Well, while you're fighting the waves of Zeds, you will see that sometimes on a map there are boxes of ammunition, sometimes an armor or another weapon that you can pick up. Also, by killing Zeds you earn Dosh, which you can use between waves at the merchant to buy some better, more advanced guns and weapons, although you are limited by the weight of what you can carry. And that's basically the game loop, right? You land, you kill Zeds, earn Dosh, buy better weapons to kill more Zeds quicker, and so on until you get to the Patriarch, and then you kill the Patriarch too. Well, but there's much more to that. So, let's start with the Zeds. There are different types of Zeds, each with their own very recognizable moveset and even more recognizable look. Up first you have the basic clots, which act as a cannon fodder and are not dangerous alone, but because they can grab the player to hold him in place, they can be dangerous if you get caught off. Then you have the Gore fasts, larger red Zeds that will quickly run at you and dish out a lot of damage. Now these guys are maybe not so dangerous alone, but if you combine them with clots, now you're in trouble, because you need to watch out for the fast attacks as well as to not be grabbed. Up next you have crawlers, little annoying Zeds that crawl on the floor and often jump down from the specific points on the map, usually stuff like vents, meaning you rarely ever see them until they are close, and even then these little bastards jump on you from the floor, and they are more of an annoying distraction than actual danger. And then you have the scarier Zeds. You've got a bloat, which is a very large Zed that has a lot of health and vomits some toxic shit on you. It's slow and really not dangerous if it's alone, but when there's more Zeds around, it's essentially a giant meat shield. You've also got a Stalker, which is invisible until it comes up close to you and hits you, meaning it's way harder to see them. Then there's a Husk, a big Zed with a flamethrowery rocket launcher that can actually shoot you from very far away. There's also a Siren, a Zed that has a very characteristic scream, and if she screams at you and you're too close, that scream will do a lot of damage, as well as distort your screen, making it harder to aim. The scream also pierces Kevlar, so you cannot really defend against her with your armor. And at the end of the food chain, we've got two big bads. A Scrake, which is a big Zed with a chainsaw that will start walking to you and attempt to cut you in half with said chainsaw, that gets a sudden boost of energy and aggression if you start shooting at it. And then there's the scariest of the bunch, a Fleshpound. This guy, oh, this is something else. It's a very large, meaty, tanky Zed that will walk towards you, and if he sees you for long enough, or if he takes enough damage, he will suddenly enrage and start running at you at Mach 5 speed. He does insane amounts of damage, and unless you've got a full armor on higher difficulties than easy, he will almost instantly and certainly kill you if he gets to you. And also, at the very end, after that 10th wave, you will have to face the Patriarch, who will spawn somewhere randomly on the map, go invisible and just start running at you, and while the enemy is fairly easy to kill in a good group, newer players might have a real problem with him, as he'll show up far away and shoot rockets at your team, which can definitely one-shot someone if they get directly hit, then run at you invisible again, trigger a minigun barrage that you need to hide from behind a wall as you get completely shredded, and at the end he will just run at you and hit you very hard. Oh yeah, and he can heal. If you damage him enough, but do not kill him instantly, he will turn invisible and run away to a corner of the map to heal himself back up to almost full and do this all over again. Also will spawn a bunch of Zeds in the process. I had to mention all the Z types because while alone they might not be the most challenging, what makes it challenging for the team is facing the combinations of them, because the amount of Zeds and the types that spawn increase with each wave, the difficulty type, and on top of that, the spawn rate also increases again for each player in the lobby. The games can get really hard and exhausting, especially on the long game match difficulty, where, if not careful, it is very easy to run out of ammo during the wave and completely wipe, meaning that you need to be careful with which gun you will be shooting which Zed, which one to focus first, what to ignore, and what your perk might be the best at killing. And speaking of perks, Killing Floor has what you could call a class system called perks, and that basically allows you to switch between different types of classes that all excel at different things and get bonuses to different stuff, and get bonuses to stats that vary from this at level 0 or level 1 to this. So, to briefly talk about said perks, you've got a Sharpshooter. Sharpshooters are good at hitting headshots with precision rifles and get huge bonuses to damage when they hit Zed in the head. They are the main damage dealer of the group. They are really good at cleaning those single big Zeds, but sometimes may struggle clearing the smaller types if they don't get the proper weapon. Commandos use assault rifles and are versatile, good at killing smaller Zeds or dishing out decent damage to the larger ones. Also, if you have a commando around, you can see cloaked Zeds and health bars of Zeds above their heads. Then we have a support specialist, who can carry way more than any other perk, and uses shotguns, making him very useful at crowd control of smaller Zeds, or, if the bigger Zeds get close enough, to blast them with a well-placed shotgun to the head. That means that not only are they good at clearing waves of Zeds, but they can always carry a spare weapon to drop for someone in case everyone starts running out of ammo. On top of all that, support can wall the doors faster, and I will go off on a tangent here because I think this is a very neat and important mechanic. You see, on the maps, more often than not, there are rooms or corridors with doors that you can open or close, and then weld up or unweld them, which helps with controlling from where the Zeds will attack you. They can obviously destroy the doors that got welded shut, but having like 20 Zeds behind a welded up door and being able to focus on the rest of them that come from every other direction is still very helpful. And Support Specialist excels at controlling these doors, which is an insanely useful thing. But enough of Support Specialist glazing. Let's talk about the Field Medic, the literal lifeblood of the party. They get a variety of guns that can heal from range, they can heal you and your party for more than you would be able to. They are more durable to damage because they're a medic, so they cannot dish out as much damage, and they get healing grenades. Yes, grenades that heal your team. It's a very insane perk, and it's basically one of the most important perks for highest difficulties. Oh, by the way, hey, if you're still watching and enjoying the video, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, and maybe a comment down below regarding the video, as it will help me out a lot. Alright, we've talked about the important perks and the precision perks. Now let's talk about the free perks that are different in playstyle from the ones that I just mentioned. And what I mean by that is that they do not rely on shooting your enemies exactly or being very accurate with their weapons. Rather, they have a slightly different playstyle. So first up, you've got a Firebug, which is a perk that deals with weapons that do fire damage to Zeds, applying damage over time effects to them. They don't need to hit Zeds precisely in the head at all times, as they do significant amount of damage from the fire on their weapons. That fire effect has a downside though. It makes Zeds run erratically as they are set ablaze, making it harder for other perks aiming at the Zeds. Then there's a Berserker, which is the melee class, essentially a tank that is more durable than anyone else, and it specializes in fighting Zeds with weapons like a katana, Zweihander, or anything else. They do way more damage in melee, and they basically have to be up close and personal with any other Zed to deal damage. And last but not least, we have Demolitions, which is a perk that focuses entirely on the things that go boom. They get grenade launchers, rocket launchers, pipe bombs, everything you'd want from a perk that specializes in explosions. They are insanely good at crowd control, and they can do massive amounts of damage to single target thanks to the pipe bombs. Each of these perks can be leveled up from level 0 to level 6, with each level getting bigger and bigger bonuses that you will need because this game's difficulty system basically makes it so the Zeds have more health, give less money, there's more of them, and they do more damage to you. Also, you do not need necessarily to play as the perk to gain experience for it, which is a really good idea in my opinion. You level these perks by fulfilling the requirements that you can see in the perk selection menu instead, and most of the time they are very straightforward. Sharpshooter levels up by headshotting Zeds with 9mm pistol and their perk weapons. You gain experience for medic by healing players. You sometimes get some additional tasks for specific perks, like support who, on top of doing damage with his perk weapons, needs to also do welding, or a commando that also needs to kill a specific amount of cloaked stalkers. But I think these requirements make sense because this is the role of these perks. So if support specialist is good at welding, it makes sense that you would level up by welding, and commando, who shows you cloaked enemies, would level up by killing stalkers on top of doing damage. But, as I said, you can fulfill all of these requirements without actually playing set spec, so sometimes you could heal your teammate and boom, you are now a medic level 2, even though you played as a support. I find it a very healthy way to level. I like the approach of gaining experience by performing actions that make sense for the perk. There's a small caveat to that though. This gets really grindy, and I mean massively grindy, and scales insanely out of control at later levels. Which, if you think about it, means that if you meet someone that plays a level 6 commando, let's say, that usually means that they played enough of this spec to be good at it, but also it really delays the satisfaction of progression. The last thing I will mention before I get to purely my opinions are the maps. There's a variety between the Killing Floor maps, which are also sharing some similarities. The variety is mostly in the openness of the maps. Some maps, like Farm, are essentially a giant open empty field with some small barns and buildings somewhere in between. Distances between trader locations are huge and there aren't really many corridors. And then you get map like Biolab, which is a lot of long, somewhat tight corridors. Or my beloved West London map, which is a fairly wide open map that has a clear lane and a bunch of different spots where you can set up. What the maps all share is the grimy, gritty, scary and abandoned vibe. Every map feels like there's danger around the corner, blood splattered everywhere, ruins, burning or destroyed cars. It all adds up to the climate of the game. And oh, the game's climate is great. you really do feel overwhelmed and like there is no hope on these maps. Everything's ruined, and the only thing that you are always sure of is that there will be a lot of death, gore, and Zeds. And I think that this is one of the most important things that add to this game, the climate of it. It just really gives you a more grounded, unsettling vibe than something like Call of Duty Zombies. Like even the World at War zombies, you just kind of felt like, oh, you were just shooting Nazi zombies. This actually gives you an apocalypse vibe. And the only thing close to it in the said vibes that I can think of from the top of my head would be Left 4 Dead, but even then, these games are slightly different in what you do. It's not fighting against waves of zombies, it's essentially an entire campaign. If you combine all of the things I mentioned above, you've got a really good co-op game and a decent horror title that gets really addictive. This game is simple enough to be picked up by completely new players, but it has a lot of possible optimization paths, a lot of tactical depth. Because yes, of course you can just start the game, pick up the best weapon that you can buy and just shoot away, but there's so much more to it, from where you and your squad settles to fight the horde, to the variety of different enemies that need to be dealt with differently, to the perks with which you play, because obviously you can play the game as 6 sharpshooters and you can still win. But having a squad of 6 players with 6 different perks more often than not acts more like a force multiplier and increases the chances of survival of the waves drastically. And on top of all that, not only do the guns in this game sound more visceral and satisfying and not like some pea shooters with suppressors on, you also play inside all this chaos with a really banger soundtrack in the background. I mean, listen to it. Now, I will admit that I have not maxed out every perk yet, as I've only got 77.5 hours in this game, probably more by now. And I have more hours in KF2 where I'm somewhere above 200 hours. But even with 77 hours of gameplay, I can honestly tell you that this game is just something else. It can feel at times dull if you play it solo, but my god, grab a bunch of friends and go into multiplayer and this game becomes many times better, and honestly, it deserves way more players than the concurrent 2 other people that regularly play it now. The game is a great example of how games were made before the landscape changed. It was first and foremost a good, working game, although it had some bugs, issues with hitboxes, but it filled a very specific niche and was not trying to be everything all at once. It was at the same time a simple game to pick up, but also more complex when you get deeper into it, and have a really fun game loop that can make these shorter or longer sessions an absolute blast. And honestly, if I were you, even if the game in my opinion is not worth the $20 price tag, I would buy this game with 5 other friends on Steam whenever it goes on sale, and this game goes on sale very often, where it goes down to like $3 or $5, and at that price I would say it's absolutely worth your time and money. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. What also adds to the game's climate is the slow motion that you sometimes get while fighting Zeds. Sometimes if you decapitate a Zed or do some crazy gory thing, the time will stop with this cool sound effect, and well, not necessarily stop, but it will slow down and you will be able to, let's say, re-aim or do anything else. And some classes can even extend this slow motion time, and in my opinion, it's a really cool feature that is added to this game. With all that being said, hopefully I did convince you to try out this little gem, and I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the first of 3 videos that I will make on the Killing Floor franchise, with the next being on Killing Floor 2, on what it improved on and what it failed at. And the last video will be just myself talking about my thoughts on what we've seen so far from Killing Floor 3, from the beta test and the gameplay footage online. Thank you very much for watching this little essay, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Peace!